Hi everyone, welcome back to the 86 F's to Give podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode. This is episode 10. We are finally at double digits and I am so excited to have my mom on for this episode. I told you guys I was going to have a guest and I've been talking about having both my parents on for a while, and we are starting with my beautiful mother, Yolanda. Most of you that are watching this probably have met my mom and know that she's just an angel on this planet. So we are really excited to have her here today. First, I will introduce her a little bit, but I want her to kind of start off with talking about her journey to what she does for work now. But yes, if you don't know, my mom is a therapist and she is a family and marriage therapist, and she has been doing that for 10 years. Officially 10 years. And so she'll tell you more about her story, but she is one of the best therapists in the area. She gets recommended by all of her clients to their kids, to their friends. Everyone gets recommended for Yolanda Cucinotta. So we're really excited to talk about all things therapy and kind of debunk some of the misconceptions of therapy today, and also just, hopefully inspire somebody to go to therapy or to start thinking about going to therapy, because we believe it's something that everybody should experience at least once in their life. So yeah, can you kind of talk about your journey to becoming a family and marriage counselor?
Sure. First, I want to say thank you so much, Allie, for having me. I feel honored to be here on your podcast. I'm so very proud of you for doing this. I think it's so beneficial to so many. So I'm happy to be here. So yes, my journey, I think I have to start way back, grew up in a very dysfunctional household. And I think by going through that experience, I know my love of people just always grew and grew. And I have just always found myself in ways that I was helping others with different situations. I was the person in school that people would come to, that they would talk to, and they could confide in me. And they didn't have to worry about hearing that information spread throughout the school. I would always keep things confidential. So I knew I always enjoyed helping people. And then as I got older and started having children and got involved with the church, that we really grew to love a lot. One of the pastors there, she just thought I had this spiritual gift, and she had me take a spiritual gifts test. She did a lot of talking with me and said, you need to be doing some counseling. And I was like, oh, I'm so interested. And it was a spiritual, it was a Stephen ministry course that I took under her for a couple years, and that was really about counseling people in the church per se. But then, she had her own business there and said, I think you could see some people outside the church as well, and really got me, got my feet wet. And I really just knew this was my niche for sure. I had gone to undergrad for a dietitian and was a dietitian for many years. But when I started working in the church and doing the counseling under the pastor, I knew I was going to be going back to school. It was just a matter of figuring out how to navigate that with young children. And then I did that and graduated 10 years ago, and have been being a marriage and family therapist ever since. And I just think it's really important to be a safe place, to offer people a place where they can come, where they can not be judged, not be criticized, right. Really a place where they can feel safe to share their hurts, their pains, their trauma, any worries, concerns, just life. Some people just want navigation through life and how to get through life on a daily basis much better and much healthier. And sometimes you just need another party, an outside party that's not your friends, not a neighbor, not a schoolmate, not your family.
Your mom.
And not your mom. Someone neutral that is, no bias towards you and can just really give you their honest thoughts about things. And really it's about helping the person to help themselves be the best version of themselves. It's not about, I'm going to tell you what to do and you just go and do it.
Right.
It's really about giving you tools, helping you learn new skills to navigate your life in a better way and manage life in a much better way and feel healthier in the process doing that. I do a lot of trauma work. A lot of people have experienced trauma, as I did as well, and it's really beneficial, as I've benefited from therapy myself, being able to do the trauma work and help people really begin to do some deep healing. A lot of times people are adults before they even start to address trauma, because our brains, our body keeps the score, our brains keep those memories, and as young children and young kids, we don't know what to do with that trauma. We don't know how to process all that. We don't know how to make sense of all that. And so we grow up and then we start to realize something's going on in our lives. Things are starting to be very impactful in negative ways. And we realize we're having trouble with relationships or trouble in our jobs or in school or with family relationships. And we're realizing things aren't quite feeling as healthy as they could. And I think therapy is just such a good outlet and such a good benefit to help people in that way.
That was beautiful. We talk a lot about being the best version of ourselves on this podcast. I feel like that's kind of my goal with each of these episodes, is to help people let go of things that are not aiding in them being the best version of themselves. So, and that's like what therapy is that you kind of talk through. So I do have some questions of my own that I wanted to ask you as a therapist. And then also I asked my Instagram followers on the 86 F's to Give Instagram account, make sure you're following, and wanted to see what some of their questions were about therapy and just kind of what people's fears were with starting therapy. So I have some of those written down as well. But I first wanted to ask you, and you kind of touched on this already, maybe you have a more specific answer, but what is your favorite part and maybe the most rewarding part about being a therapist?
Wow. What I love the most about being a therapist, especially I do a lot of marriage and family therapy. So I'm working with the families. I work a lot with couples. And so it's really, but really overall, what really is most rewarding is being a witness to seeing people do the beautiful work and watching the growth over the period of time and watching them change and, like you said, become their best version of themselves. To really watch that healing process and know that you were an instrumental part of that. It's just beautiful to witness. It never gets old. I never get tired of it. I'm just so happy. And it's good when you can build that rapport with people and they can trust in you, that they know they can get to the other side, that it doesn't always have to feel the way it felt when they came in the door and began therapy.
Yeah. And then obviously on the other side of that, what would you say is the most challenging aspect of being a therapist? And I know I can only imagine how much you take on some of the things that people share with you and the traumas they've had, and we're both very empathetic people, so I know you probably feel that very deeply, and just by caring about people in general and humans, you care about these people and you grow to have a relationship with them. So what are some of those challenges that you face when you have so many clients a week and they're probably sharing terrible things that they've gone through, and how do you kind of navigate that?
Yeah, so that can be really challenging. I mean, I'm human just like everybody else, so that can be very challenging. I am very empathetic for sure, and so I have to make sure I do self-care. I have to make sure I honor myself in ways to help me recharge and regroup and all of that, so that I can really show up as my best self when I'm helping others. Otherwise, if I don't take care of me, and people always think taking care of yourself first is selfish, and I always tell people it's selfless, so that I can show up to be the best version of me, best mom, best wife, best therapist, all of those things. And so I do that. Now, the other thing that's also challenging with therapy is that often some people are very nervous about, are they going to be judged? Are they going to be criticized? Are they going to be put down? And so they get very worried about sharing. That's why building that rapport and being a really good match for someone is really, really important. That's like the first thing. It's like half the battle is just getting the therapy. The other half is like making sure you have a really good match and someone you can really trust in, and someone that builds that safe, environment for you to be able to open up. And so that can be hard sometimes and very challenging when people, you can tell they're really holding dear to their, because once they say it, you can't unhear it. And so they feel like they're going to be judged. And so that's why that building that rapport is so very important. And once you get through that part, then people are able to open up and realize, wait a minute, you're someone who's along for the journey with me. You're actually on my side. You're in this with me. I'm not alone. And then you're on the healing path.
Yeah, so you touched on two things that other people actually asked in the Instagram question box, and I'll ask them both separately. But the first one is, you said people are often sometimes scared to share their whole truth or their whole trauma, or they maybe not lie to their therapist, but they leave out important details, or again, not share exactly how they're feeling, or brush over things that maybe did really make them feel a certain type of way. And so what would you say to people that are scared to give that whole truth or share all of their experiences when they are first starting therapy? And I know obviously as time goes on, I'm assuming that gets easier when they finally can trust you. But if they never get to that point with sharing, then it's like you can't build that trust. So like, what advice would you have for people that are feeling nervous about, telling their deepest, darkest secrets to a stranger, essentially?
Sure. I mean, there have been times when the first question usually I ask anyone who comes to therapy, once I welcome them and introduce myself and everything, and as soon as they sit down, my first question often is, how do you feel right now in this moment? And that's when people will share like, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. I'm so anxious. You're a stranger. I'm worried. I don't know what to think. I almost didn't come. I almost canceled. Yeah. And so you learn a lot right there in that. And so sometimes we just kind of do some grounding techniques right there, do some mindfulness just to help people get grounded. And that often, like I'll see the shoulders drop and relax a little bit, and people will start to feel more comfortable just in that moment. And then I talk about, it's hard to share. I am a stranger. Yeah. So I want you to share as you feel comfortable. If you want to share, there's a lot you want to say about a topic that brought you here to therapy. If you're not ready to share that today, That's okay.
Yeah.
Just by telling someone that, it gives them that control. They feel empowered. Like, oh, I didn't have to go. Like, she didn't just tell me I have to do and I'm running the show. It's like, this is your work. This is your I'm here to facilitate and help guide you. But you get to make the decisions. You're an individual, because we have to always remember there's so many people who are in therapy that did not have the autonomy to make decisions. Right. They didn't have that independence. They didn't have that chance that agency to be able to be who they really wanted to be, and to have that voice and to be heard and to be listened to, and have someone, feel in control. Like, that gives them that sense of control and empowerment. Like, that's really important to me more than anything. I've been with people where I've had to work the first 4 weeks in a row, just building that rapport, just getting them to start to build that trust. And I tell them, share as you want. You're welcome to say, you know what? You touched on that, Yolanda, but I'm not ready to go there. I think I'll talk about that maybe another time when I feel more comfortable. I say, thank you for letting me know. Yeah. I'll just make a little mental note of that's something we need to come back to. And I'll check in with them here and there. But they know there's no pressure.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's something that helped me a lot in therapy. I went to therapy as a kid, and then again, like last year as an adult. And I think with my therapist, I would always come prepared with notes of things I wanted to talk about, and I was only doing 30-minute sessions, so I had to be prepared. And so she would ask me things that we left off on like how, we would talk about things at the end of each session that I wanted to work on for the next week or so, or every other week. And so we would talk about that, and then it was nice that she had notes to like prompt me to things I said, I want to talk about this, maybe we don't have enough time today, but let's talk about this next time. And so I feel like that was really helpful, and it's nice that seems like a reoccurring practice amongst most therapists, that they kind of let people kind of go at their own pace and say, you touched on this, do we want to dive into it today? If not, totally fine, we can talk about something else. And it was also really helpful where maybe we had planned for next session to talk about something, but in those 2 weeks, something way bigger and more, pertinent and important to me happened. She was okay with me, bringing that, and we would, push that other topic to another session. And like, that was really helpful too, is like whatever I needed to unpack in those 30 minutes, like she was there to unpack it with me. And that was like really cool, and one of my favorite things about therapy, at least my experience with therapy. So I love that. That seems like something a lot of therapists do.
Yeah, I'd like to touch on that. Yeah. What you said, that's a really important part. Like you said, when someone's coming in with like, we're going to follow up on something we already talked about, but then they come in with something big that happened, whatever is most pressing, that is what we're going to address, because you're meeting the person where they're at. Right. And so that's really important, that we're not going to say, oh no, but we were going to talk about that thing, and then just skip over that. Like people will feel dismissed if we do that. So it's important to say, no, this is what's going on. This is what we need to address. And that thing can always wait, because the thing is, they can't delve into that other issue anyway, because this is what's at the forefront of their mind, and that's what needs to be addressed.
Another thing that you touched on a little bit ago that I wanted to ask was kind of what that first session, or maybe not even the first actual session, but is there some sort of period where you're even figuring out if you and the client will be a good match? I'm curious, and I think you've shared a little bit with me about this, is like, not only are you trying to make sure that they're a good match, or that you're a good match for them, but also is what they're going through and something that you're able to help them with. Because I know there's therapists that are like, that specialize in like LGBTQ plus stuff, or family and marriage, like different things. And so it's like, what is that first phone call like, or that first session like, where you're trying to figure out like, are we going to work well together both ways, so that you're feeling like you're helping them, and then they're also getting that help, and they're not scared to share.
Like that's through the intake process, and that's what that's all about. It's a complimentary consultation. Right. It's usually 15 or 20 minutes, but a lot of information is shared during that time. So that's the opportunity for me to learn about the client, especially, and also for them to learn about me, and they're feeling that rapport even through the phone. Now, what I also do is I'll offer sometimes to meet with people on a Zoom. If I feel like they're kind of really wavering, they're not sure, it's their first time approaching therapy, I also say, would you like to meet on Zoom? Some people, oh my gosh, yes, they actually see your face, like see you. So people will, prefer that, and that's been really helpful.
What are you looking for, or what do you think, you know what I mean? Like, what are there types of things, are there red flags that go off that were like, oh, maybe we won't be a good match? I know that maybe has happened sometimes.
Well, it's, you don't want to work out of your scope of practice is the main thing. So like, I work a little bit with people with eating disorders, usually kind of more mild, or someone who has a history of eating disorder, or it's not really a present thing that's happening. Right. I can really help somebody more with that than someone who's actively in an eating disorder. That's not my specialty. So I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to tell that person that. And then I'm going to say, but I can get you 3 referrals.
Right.
And people really appreciate that you're not just trying to take them on and get a client and make money, and you can't really benefit them in the best way. So you shouldn't do things out of your scope of practice. So I don't do that. I definitely will recommend. But I ask questions like, I want to know what their support system's like for sure. I want to know as they're going through this journey, because therapy can be very disruptive. Emotions are going to come up. All these different things are going to come out. And so I want to make sure they have a good support system in place. Right. Or do we first need to talk about some kind of resources to make sure they have some kind of support as they're going through this journey? Because it's not usually easy at first. Right. It can be very challenging. And you want to have some people in supports in your in place to lean on for sure as you're going through it.
I've left therapy crying in like good ways and bad ways, and just it's like you share all this, and maybe I wasn't even crying in the session, but you leave and then you're like, you just need to, and we're criers, so like it's common for us, but like sometimes you just need to get out that feeling, or it's like a relief cry almost. It's like I finally was able to express how I felt, I was able to get that off my chest, whatever. And it's good to have, like you said, that support system where you go home, or you go to work and you have coworkers that's going to support you, or you go home and you have a partner or a family or whatever, or your friends. And like, so it's definitely, it's not, therapy isn't all like rainbows and you're going to come out of every session being like, oh my gosh, I'm this brand new person and I can go tackle the world now. Like, no, you're doing work. You're really working hard, and it's like, it's a lot, and you're on your mental and your physical, and it's, you mentioned this before, but our body holds on to things. So it's like when you finally start working on it, it comes up in your body. So that support system is such a huge and important part for sure.
And we talk about goals of therapy. Like, what are your goals? What brought you to therapy? What makes, and I want to find out like what's bringing you to therapy at this time. Because people often say a lot of things have been going on over the past several years, but something got them there that week that they reached out to call. So I want to know what brought them to therapy at that time. So I get a sense of what's happening in their life currently, as well as what are their goals for therapy? What are they hoping to get out of it? So I get a sense of so I know if I can help them the best way by knowing what their goals are. So that's something else we discuss.
That's a great point. It makes a lot of sense as well. And then you can kind of be like an accountability partner as well. Like when they first share your goals, their goals with you, it's like, okay, let's make sure we're checking in on this after, 4 sessions or whatever, make sure we're staying on track with what you want to get out of this. I think that's really awesome.
And people are always so grateful for that complimentary consultation. And they always apologize. I'm so sorry. I said all this. I shared all this. Oh my gosh, was that too much? People are always apologizing because they're like, I can't believe, like, you're a stranger. I don't know you. And you just listened to me and you let me be vulnerable. And so I always, thank people for being vulnerable, for trusting me through this intake process. That's the first part. You're starting to build that rapport right then and there. The way you sound, the way you deliver your messages, the way you talk to someone, your facial expression, all of that. You're starting to build that rapport right from that intake. That's where it's all starting. And so I try to make sure I'm honoring people in the way they deserve to be honored.
That makes a lot of sense, and is, I'm sure, really helpful for a lot of people to actually take that step into joining and starting therapy. Another question that somebody asked on the Instagram question, I feel like sometimes there's misconceptions around therapy where people think they're going to go and say that they're anxious or they have these thoughts or there's these things, and they're going to get like sent to a hospital, or they're not, like, they just like jump to the extreme, which a lot of us do. We talked about this in the All or Nothing episode. To people that think that they're gonna just be like called crazy or whatever, like, and because those people are scared to start therapy because they think that that's what's gonna happen. They think they're gonna get institutionalized, or they think like, and like ultimately that is not the therapist's goal. But I know there's times where you have to report certain things, and you can touch on that. But what would you say to people that have those fears when they want to start therapy, but they're scared they're going to get like sent away?
That could be very challenging as well. But I call therapy a gift. I think it's a gift. I think it's a gift that everybody can benefit from. Again, it needs to be with the right therapist for sure, and the right practice. But that's a true concern. People are worried. Are you going to judge me? Are you going to criticize me? People often will say, oh, Yolanda, I'm sure you've never heard anything like this. You must think this of me. And people, it's all these things they're projecting, but because they're feeling it and they're hearing that narrative play in their minds, and they're thinking, she has to be thinking this. I know I must have the craziest story, And I'm like, there's probably nothing you're going to say that I haven't heard before, So I just try to assure people that, this is a safe place. Again, building that rapport, letting people know this is a safe place. Again, you're in control. No one's going to control you here. You get to decide what you want to share. but I can only help you as much as you want to help yourself. Right. So that's really important. And I always let people know if there's any kind of safety concern that, especially a child like 14 doesn't have to have parents in there with them. Mm-hmm. Someone even, 12 doesn't have to have parents necessarily always in there with them. They might come in at sometimes, but a 14-year-old can sign their own papers for therapy. Oh. But like if there's any kind of safety concern, then I'm going to reach out to that emergency contact, which is often the parent. Even if an adult has a safety concern, like, suicidal issues, things like that, we need to have a contact person, or we're going to call 911 and we're going to help them that way. We're definitely going to do that because that's ethically what we need to do. We need to make sure the person is going to be safe. If someone's actually actively telling me they have a plan to harm themselves, I can't just say, okay, I'll see you next week. I have to, say we're going to call your emergency contact. We're going to call 911. We're going to start the proceedings and we're going to get you the support you need. I've gone to the hospital with people before. Yeah. Some people are just thinking I'm having some ideations, but I don't have any kind of plan. I don't have any kind of, access to any harmful instruments or anything like that. I'm going to do a safety plan with those people. And there's like a contract that they kind of sign, sometimes just signing that they've done that in front of someone and committed to, protecting themselves is enough for many people. But it's not just you come to therapy and you start sharing and, you're going to be sent out. That's never the goal. We're just going to help you to manage life and live through everyday life and get through, the daily basis of life as much as possible.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And I think it's a genuine fear that people feel that when starting therapy, but I think once they start and hopefully have the right therapist, and they'll realize that that's kind of not the goal of anyone here, is to, it's just to help them have the tools and be the best version of themselves.
Yeah, and it's really hard for people sometimes, even if they don't have like a safety concern, to just trust, at first especially, that they think, well, you're a human being. You could share with anybody you want. Like, you're really going to keep my information confidential. And again, depending on their experiences, that might have been, where that never happened for them. Maybe they confided in different people where it wasn't kept safe for them and they have a real hard time with that. So that, again, would be like that main issue that's being presented. We're going to address that first. Yeah. Before we even like delve into other things, we're going to talk about just them feeling safe in the space. What would help you feel safer? And that's where sometimes we'll start with the, mindfulness and grounding techniques might be what we need to work on the first couple of weeks, just to help them feel even safe in the space.
That makes a lot of sense. Another question that was asked was, has anyone ever ghosted you? Do you know what that means? Like, they just stop showing up and you don't hear from them. Sorry, I always...
Yeah, I know that.
She knows. She's hip because she has young clients that keep her hip. And me.
And children.
But has that ever happened where you just, like, stop hearing from somebody that you're supposed to, meet with? And how many times do you reach out? What is the process for that? Do you take it personally? I'm sure you don't, but like what is that like?
So it's happened in different ways. Like, so someone's scheduled to meet with you, you've done the intake, everybody's on board, they filled out paperwork, Often I can tell that when that could potentially happen just from how nervous someone might have been through the intake. But they'll just not show up. And so of course I reach out. Sometimes somebody's just lost, or they've had God forbid, an accident, or they forgot, or anything happened, and people will reschedule. So I'll call usually maybe a couple times, 2 or 3 times max. And then I'll just, that last time is going to be, okay, please reach out to me. I'm here if you want to continue services or want to resume or start the services up again, that kind of thing. And sometimes people will and some people won't. But they've already usually expressed how anxious they are about starting. Yeah. So I'm not really surprised. It doesn't usually happen when someone has already started therapy. Usually if someone doesn't come to an appointment, there's usually a reason. At least in my case, there's usually a reason that, whether they forgot, whether they overslept, whether they were in an accident or something traumatic happened that they just couldn't, they're in the hospital, something like that. Yeah. But definitely before they start therapy, that's when the ghosting typically will happen, if it's going to happen.
Okay, one question that was kind of more specific that somebody sent in was, how can they work on their anxious attachment style in therapy, or maybe even just on their own? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so with the anxious attachment style, people usually have a fear of abandonment and they need a lot of reassurance. So it could be from different experiences, trauma, dysfunction, things they went through growing up, especially in childhood. So they have that fear of closeness. It's hard to maintain relationships. It's hard, even with friendships, it's hard to get close because you feel like that friend's going to leave me. It could even be a child who parents might have been in the service or something. They moved a lot and they feel like, I can never get attached to a friend, a neighbor, a school, because I'm just going to constantly pick it up. I can't get too close. So now they're trying to have maybe a more loving, intimate relationship. And it's like, is this person going to leave me? And that kind of thing. So first, again, having a really good support system and really like working on building
confidence and self-esteem, because often people that have anxious attachment have a low self-esteem and also low confidence level. So it's really like building that up. That's what I work on a lot with people, because building that up, then they can do some of the things I'm asking them to do and try some of the strategies and kind of like putting themselves in different settings and noticing and doing a lot of journaling and writing down like that went well, that interaction went really well, this person is trustworthy because of, and so that they can see it and they can reread it and realize and just kind of own those experiences that happen, and not just let the narrative, that inner critic, just take over and say, oh no, this one's not going to this one's going to leave you, or this one's not going to work out, or this one's going to go. It's like, let's think about that. So you've been with this person, you've been dating this person, say, for how long? Well, did it start off in the beginning? And you tell me, usually it might be positive things. Well, how's it going now? And like have that reference to look back on and think about, the person now as that person's healing and getting stronger. And often people are thinking about that younger self. And they're seeing that fear comes up. Yeah. And, when it comes to fear, we can fear everything and run, or we can face everything and rise. And so
Did you guys catch that?
That makes us lean in a little bit to the fear, even though it's still fearful, but we can lean in a little bit and kind of just take a pause and say, is this sometimes it's the younger self that's really like that trigger and that emotion's coming up of fear, that abandonment, and say, but me, the adult today, is safe in this relationship. Right. Like I said, even if it's a friendship or a coworker or relationship or that kind of thing, or an intimate relationship, and just really being mindful of it, sharing, being open about it with your partner and letting them in a little bit and letting them know what the experience is like for them, what you're going through, to help the person have more patience with you and
help them help you.
Help them help you, teach them how to best support you in those moments that can be really difficult for you and really challenging.
I love that. I want to circle back to the fear acronym that you said.
So fear, F-E-A-R, can be fear everything and run.
Yes.
I like face everything and rise.
Yes. I love that so much. I'm gonna click that. Stay tuned for Instagram on that one. That is really good. I love that. I think a lot of people have different attachment styles, but the anxiety kind of mindset runs in a lot of different areas of people's lives. And so, maybe that kind of bleeds into other areas, into work, worrying about getting fired, or that you're not going to do a good job, or things like that. And then, into friendships, like you said, family relationships, loving relationships, things like that. It kind of can affect all of that. So when you come to therapy and you can do the work in the sense of the relationship, it's also going to help you in all those other areas of your life. And that's like the coolest part to me about therapy, is like you learn one tool and then you're like, oh, I learned this tool in the sense of like, this happened and this person said this one thing to me, and so I'm using this tool for that. But now I have this tool that I can now use in any other area of my life when like that same feeling is put onto me from another interaction or something that somebody else says or something that I do or whatever. So I love that part about therapy too, is like it's not just every little situation has its own thing to fix it. It's like, no, you learn these tools that can be used kind of everywhere, and I think that's really, really cool too.
Yeah. And another beautiful thing I love to witness is through the help and the work of the therapist with the client, is that it really helps people to realize that those narratives that they've been holding on to and that they've been playing like a recording over and over, we learn that just because those were the narratives that we were given, those messages that we received, it doesn't mean those messages were true.
Right.
And now today we can write new messages. We can write new chapters to the book. We can write a whole new book. We can tell the story, and it can be, we're the author.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not someone else like telling us we're this, we're that, we're all those things we heard and we held on to because the brain heard it so much, it believed it. And so then we become adult and we still believe it. And it's like, you start to learn, wait a minute, just because someone told me that and sent me those messages, that doesn't mean it was true.
Right.
And I can learn to be more positive with myself and really love myself.
I love that.
And give myself things that weren't given to me.
Yeah. My last question is, what are some of the tasks or like homework assignments you give to people? And you don't have to give like exact examples, but just like how would you kind of describe, or do you give homework? And I know you do, but like what is that kind of like? What are you asking of your clients in between that week or the 2 weeks that you see them in your sessions? What are you asking of them to do? Because I know you see them an hour out of the week. That's not that much time of the whole week. And so what are they tasked with, or, what should they be looking for when expecting when they get to therapy of like, it's more than just the hour session that I have to do work. I have to do the work on my own as well outside of that. What is that like?
Yeah. A very common exercise that I give for homework for people to do is write a letter. Sometimes it's a thank you letter to yourself. Cute. And it's just, and a lot of times I just do very vague. I don't want to give a lot of detail. I want the client to really do the work, but just start with, thank you for or I thank myself for. And people have really found that really healing to, because people we're just giving. We never think about ourselves. And so thank you for, or writing a letter to a loved one who has passed. Sometimes when people are dealing with grief and loss or depression about that, often writing a letter can be really healing. Just writing is so therapeutic and so cathartic for people to do. So I'm always asking people to do some kind of writing assignment, which people have found really beneficial. Sometimes when people come in and they have a very negative attitude and they realize they're very negative and they see just doom and gloom because of their upbringing maybe, or because of things they've experienced more recently, and they just feel like all they notice is the negative in the world, I might just challenge somebody, everywhere you go. I don't care if it's a grocery store. I don't care if you're stepping outside on your front step and you see a neighbor, whatever it be, going to work, going to a friend's, a family member, a store. Look for the positives. Tell me 3 positives you found each day, and then come back and report that to me. The 3 positives you found each day over, the 7 days in between sessions. It could be something, as simple as that. Couples work, I have them do, different exercises as well. They might be working on communication skills that I gave them. They might be practicing repair when they have an argument, say. I give them the steps of repair. So they're practicing that if that comes up, an argument or a disagreement. Or they may be doing what I teach them, how to do a check-in, how to work on a specific topic to talk about, starting with appreciation for each other, and then talking about the topic and honoring each other's experiences, and then validating for each other, and then thank you for showing up the way you did during this session, and talking about next steps. So it's a lot of different exercises I like to give.
Yeah, I think that's all. It's so interesting to hear about that, because I know, I got homework in a sense of we're going to work on this and this, but I think for different levels of therapy, it's more specific. I want you to do, report back to me what you saw this week, or what, working on this felt like, and things like that. I think that's so important, and something that I think people should be ready for when they join therapy, because like I said, it's not just the hour session, then you're going to leave being a brand new person, and you're going to be able to conquer everything. You have to really put in the work. And I think that might be another thing that deters people, is they're not ready to kind of, put that much work in. But once you finally hit that breaking point and you're like, no, I need help to be the best version of myself, it can be the most rewarding experience.
Yeah. I mean, I've had people say, I'm not sure if I really want to change. Yeah. I'm not sure that I don't want to hang on to this depression or this anxiety. It's kind of working for me. And so we talk about that. Yeah. We talk about, how is it working for you? What in what ways is it working for you? How is it showing up in your life? And so you, again, meeting them right where they're at in that moment. And I also want to say journaling is a big one for an exercise for homework. The journaling is really important. And I'm a big believer in journaling. I like all the different things that are out now, 5-minute journals, the different kind of journals, because people thought of journaling as you got to write all these paragraphs, and it's almost like writing a book, but it can be that way, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it could be a 5-minute journal. It can be drawing a picture. Yeah. It could be your way of journaling. It's your expression is what it is. It could be bullet points. It's whatever. It's individualized for you. And that's some people get turned away from journaling. They think it has to be a specific way. But people, when they realize they have more freedom with it, they're like, oh, okay, I can just draw a picture. I'm like, it's your journaling. It's your expression. So that's been really helpful for people. A lot of people that are creative, they'll do it through a picture, and they'll bring in pictures and show me. We'll talk about the picture and how they were feeling and what came up for them as they looked at that picture. And
well, I mean, that makes a lot of sense too, because as a kid I did play therapy, and that was because as kids especially, we aren't able to really find the words to explain what we're feeling or what's happening. And so I think because I think back to going to therapy as a kid, and I was literally playing in the sand with figurines and drawing pictures and painting. It was not anything like the therapy that I experienced a year ago. Obviously, I even sometimes I'm like, how did my therapist even get anything from those interactions? But they do. Obviously, they're trained to as well. But it's so interesting to see. It's so cool to me how much therapists are trained to pick up on body language, the different things what. Even I know you've had me do exercises where we draw a certain mandala or a house or something, and even where you put the door or the windows on this house all mean something, or the types of shapes you put in your mandala, the colors you use, all of that really tells a story. And I think it's so cool to, like you said, meet people where they're at. If they're not able to write 6 paragraphs about what they went through this week, but they're able to draw a picture, or they're able to color in color-coded things of this emotion means, or this color is this emotion, and kind of do that. I did a lot of that as a kid as well. And so, using those tools in all ages, I think is really important, because again, meeting people where they're at is kind of the biggest thing, because not everybody's able to vocalize, especially right off the bat with somebody that they're just meeting.
And another thing that's really important that comes up a lot is people are like blame themselves a lot because they have been blamed a lot, and they're the problem. They're the problem in the family. They're the black sheep of the family, if you will. They're the one that causes all the stress. And so it's hard for people to detach from that problem, and they see themselves as the problem, and that carries such a heavy weight for them. And so sometimes I'll do an exercise writing session, something very simple, balling up a piece of paper, and I throw it across the room, and I go, there's the problem. You're not the problem.
That's cool.
There's the problem. And people often will start crying. They'll be like, oh my, like it's almost like they got a release from it. You know, I go, so let's talk about that problem over there. Not let's talk about the problem you are.
Right.
It's like, so we can just reframe things and help people to see things a different way from what the message they receive and what they've been told all their lives.
That's beautiful. I really like that. Obviously, I don't watch you do therapy because that's illegal, but like I've heard your experience over my whole life, really. And so it's really cool to see your growth with it and your confidence and just like how much like joy it brings you and how it's so rewarding to you. But one thing I want to talk about before we end this episode is our relationship as mother and daughter having a therapist as a mom, and she's nervous now. No, I feel like we've come such a long way. I mean, we've always been best friends and I've had the best relationship, I think. And so it was never like bad ever. I think there was times where I just wanted to cry to my mom and not have solutions right away. And I want to preface this, like, moms already want to fix things that aren't therapists, right? So having a mom that now has the knowledge and the tools of therapy, it made you want 10 times more and be like, oh, let's do this. And it was like, I actually just want to cry right now. I just need to be held. And so, when I was 12, I didn't know how to say that. So I would not get angry really, but it was just like, I didn't feel like I wasn't in the place to start fixing the problem. Right. And so I think it took us like, I don't know, until maybe college, I was able to kind of express, maybe I think that's when maybe late high school, we started, I was able to express like, I actually just want to hug and cry right now. And then you were so receptive to that. And like, it was really beautiful, I think, for us to kind of have that conversation and work on that. And also on my part, I was able to say, hey, this is what I need. Like, I actually, you know, because you can't read my mind and I can't read your mind. So it was like really cool for us to get to that place where I could start a conversation off with, hey, I just need to vent right now. And that's how we start our call sometimes now. I'll text you like, are you in session? And I'll just call and be like, I just need to get this out. And like, you'll literally just like listen to me talk for 30 minutes or whatever. And then, you know, or you'll ask like, can I give my thoughts or my opinions or whatever? And I'm like, yeah, actually, I think I can hear that right now. And so I think that's really cool that we got to that place. And so if you're a mother that is a therapist or you have a mother that's a therapist, that's okay to feel like that. And it's okay to tell your mom, I just want you to be my mom right now. I don't want you to be my therapist. But then it's also been so nice to have a therapist as a mom, because I said this I might have said this in my first episode here, but I've also said this to my last therapist, is that I think I've gotten so far. I mean, because I struggle with anxiety and have seasonal depression sometimes, and we all have different things that go on. So like, I definitely could have gone to therapy way sooner in my life, as like an adult life, if I hadn't had you as my mom, I think. But I had those tools, and I talk about things my mom has told me in every single one of these episodes. So like, I use those tools literally daily, and it's something I'm so grateful for. So it's not like it was ever detrimental, or, you know, it wasn't like that. It was like, so it was just a cool give and take that we had to figure out. And like, I wanted to talk about it because I'm proud of us for that.
I am too. I had to really learn that if you had capacity for things instead of just putting it all out there, you know, like, I've got the solution. It's like, wait, I have to, you know, take a pause here.
And usually it was like, I just needed, you know, an hour, and then I'd come, okay, I'm ready now. Or it was the next day or whatever. It wasn't like, I can't speak to you for a week. No, it was like, we'll figure this out. It was just, I needed just a second to get it out. And so it was really cool that we were able to get to that place. I think those are all of my questions and thoughts. Do you have any, I'm putting you on the spot here. We often, you and I talk about, you know, different nuggets that we just like to keep in our back pocket, or little phrases that we kind of use. Do you have anything that you want to leave our audience with today whether it's about starting therapy or just a piece of advice.
Yeah, as far as therapy, I just want to say, like, I think therapy is just a gift. It just keeps on giving. You know, it just helps you and can help you over long term, you know, and then by helping you yourself, you're helping others. And so it's just a gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah.
I think it's a beautiful gift to give to yourself. I really do.
Definitely something worth investing in. Oh, really quick, I did want to give a side note that we understand that therapy is something that not everybody has access to due to like financials, and also, you know, sometimes you start a therapy with a therapist at home, and then you go to college, and there's different laws in different states, so you can't necessarily take your therapist with you when you move and things like that. So I just wanted to put that out there, that we understand, because the title of this episode is 86 not going to therapy. So I don't want people to think I'm like, go to therapy and spend all your money. Like, if that's not something that is accessible to you at this time, I know there's a lot of more affordable ways out there, like BetterHelp and things like that these days. But like, even, you know, I use my primary doctor and I just pay my copay to go, and it's not hundreds of dollars and things like, and so I know there's places that can work with your insurance. So like, do you have any thoughts
and there's also
that?
like employee assistant programs, you know, EAP, where you can get like at least the first 6 sessions, it usually is, where there may not even be a charge at all. It depends on the company you work for, but most companies have that employee assistance program, so that's even free. So that's really helpful just to get you started. Sometimes people just need a few sessions just to help them out, so that can be really beneficial. But some people go to their pastor or their church counselor or someone there that they can confide in, you know, so that's helpful too. You know, sometimes it could be a family member that can be really helpful, or you know, someone like that. So just, you know, someone you trust. You want it to be someone you feel you can trust, that you feel really safe with, so that if you're not able to afford it and you know you're not able to do it that way, or don't feel comfortable doing it that way, there's other people that, you know, like I said, I was the person people came to. I was holding all kinds of, you know, space for so many people, and you know, because they could feel like I was going to keep everything confidential. They knew they could feel safe with me. They knew they could, you know, trust in me to keep their information and their story. And all the stories matter, and they're so important.
I also wanted to say first that point that we know that it's not accessible to everybody, and that hopefully like it gets more accessible things in the future. But I also wanted to point out that if you are somebody that is like still in high school, or you know, somewhere where you're like afraid to ask your parents to go to therapy, I feel like that is a lot of my friends have expressed that fear as well. Like, go to your school counselor, go to your, you know, once you get to college, they also have school counselors there. And then again, once you get a full-time job, hopefully that's something that your insurance and your benefits can kind of cover or help you cover. Still reach out to somebody, even if it's not your parents. If you're, you know, if they're the reason that you need to go to therapy and you're scared to tell them that you want to go to therapy, it's still, there's other ways around it to get into therapy, and they don't even really need to know that you're going to the school counselor or things like that. And so I wanted to encourage people to still, there's ways to do it even without, you know, having to ask your parents or things. And I just
like to say, it is definitely a strength to ask for help. In all ways. So even if you don't even, you know, if you're not feeling comfortable going to a therapist or reaching out to parents, like I said, even if you want to talk to a friend and let a friend know what's going on, that may be able to get you some support and help. Speak up if you can. Definitely try to speak up, because asking for help is by far a great strength. It is not a weakness at all.
Absolutely. So we're going to leave you all with that. I wanted to thank you again, Mom, for coming on.
You're very welcome. It's a pleasure.
This is a special episode. We're officially at double digits, which is so crazy to me. So I'm just so excited. And I say this every episode, but it's like so fun to do these and come up with the topics and plan it out and talk it through with people and hear people's thoughts. And it's just been a really awesome experience for me. So I'm very grateful that I started doing this, and I'm going to continue doing it. So please leave any thoughts or comments in the comments below. We want to hear what your thoughts are. If you have any other questions for my mom or I about therapy, comment them and I'll comment back. I'll ask her and comment back to you. We would love to continue the conversation, and hopefully we inspired at least one person to even start thinking about going to therapy or asking for help, because that is something that we believe strongly in. But yeah, last little reminders are to follow us on Instagram and TikTok. It's all linked below. And if you would rather watch this, you can watch it on YouTube and see my beautiful mother's face and my beautiful face. And then, yeah.
A beautiful face.
No. I get it from my mom. I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but anywho, thank you so much for listening. If nobody has told you recently, we love you and we are so proud of you. You are crushing life's but. And
you matter always in all ways.
yes. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.
Bye.